Spain's Ministry of Time, MOT, is a covert government agency dedicated to improving the humanity. Their mission is straightforward: they must go back in time and fix the little mistakes that have the potential to change the future for the worse. In the opening scene, MO agent Irene is seen in 1918 Barcelona, helping a lady give delivery. Eventually, after much effort, a baby is born, and the mood of the room immediately brightens. Irene, too, is elated, but she passes out from dizziness before she can participate in the fun. It has been determined that she is afflicted with the fatal Spanish flu that was rife at the time. The epidemic was so lethal and widespread that it killed an estimated 50 million people. In the current day, in the MO's hidden base, Chief Dr. Vargas and Susana, the new head of operations, are talking about the situation. Vargas is concerned that resurrecting Irene might infect a large number of people or spark a new epidemic. Susana counters this, though. As far as she is concerned, Irene can be rehabilitated and made well again if the right health procedures and steps are taken. She also insists that none of their operatives be abandoned in the past at any point. The reluctant Vargas agrees and prepares for Irene's visit. And then she's spirited away to present-day Barcelona from the Barcelona of 1918. Irene has a high temperature and can hardly keep her eyes open, making the situation even more dire. The medical staff takes the virus very seriously, and they take precautions by wearing special protective garments. Not only that, but nobody save Dr. Vargas and a handful of other medical professionals are permitted in the examination room. There has been no change in Irene's health after 24 hours. The illness continues to weaken her body despite the treatment. At the same time, the nurse who has been caring for Irene finishes his shift and exits the examination room. He ditches his safety gear in a separate area and then visits the cafeteria. All the safeguards in the world can't prevent the nurse from contracting the virus and unwittingly infecting a few others. A few hours later, the infected start hacking, and Vargas knows his worst fears have come true. He has words with Susana, the head of operations, about an immature choice she made, but she defends herself. She blames the doctor for not having the right tools to deal with the emergency. Vargas has had enough, so he does what any self-respecting man would do and leaves her alone. The following scene shows the base going into full quarantine, with almost no one allowed to leave. To add insult to injury, the agents stationed in the past have been given strict orders to stay put until everything returned to normal. Vargas then calls a meeting of all the base's staff to brief them on the situation. Susana takes charge and tries to calm everyone down after a time. But at the same moment, Velázquez, one of MO's top agents, collapses. In other words, the infection has progressed to a new stage. Everyone who isn't immune is ordered to stay in their workplaces while the sick patients are rushed to the isolation ward immediately. When Vargas examines Irene, he finds that her temperature is still rather high. Recently, though, she has begun to make some babbling sounds. Soon later, Vargas checks up on the infected nurse and takes a blood sample from him. When he's finished, he puts the sample in his pocket and walks out. The agents, including his co-worker Juan, discover that the sample he was carrying in his pocket had leaked as he is leaving. But he says it's ink and runs off. While this is going on, several high-ranking ministry officials decide to reach out to a well-known doctor through video chat in order to get some answers. The German pharmaceutical firm Schwabel, he adds, experimented with developing a vaccine using tissue samples from recently deceased patients in 1918. However, it was unsuccessful, and the business eventually vanished. Another 24 hours have passed without the sufferers receiving any sort of relief. Irene and Velázquez are in serious condition, and the nurse who unknowingly introduced the illness has now gone dead. The whole MO staff watches in shock as Vargas rolls the body of the nurse into the extermination chamber. They fear that they themselves are next in line. Later that night, while on the move again, this time with a large bag in hand, Vargas is spotted by Juan, a co-worker. Medications for the patients are running low, so Vargas says he has to go immediately to acquire them. Despite his suspicions, Juan releases the doctor. But in the next instant, he goes up to his superiors and reports that the doctor has broken inside the quarantine zone. He also has reason to believe that Vargas is up to no good because the latter lied the day before about having ink on his shirt. It has been discovered that red ink is not used anywhere inside the MO base. A time later, when Juan and his girlfriend Shauna are talking, they see a worker wheeling away some antiviral medications. They come straight from the German pharmaceutical firm Schäuble. The investigation revealed that the firm is actively operating till now. This confirms to the couple's suspicion that Vargas is selling blood samples from Spanish flu victims. As hearing the news, their superior is taken aback after Juan and Shauna instantly pass it forward. After this, an older character confronts Vargas about his betrayal and threatens to tell Susana about it. But Vargas doesn't offer an apology. Instead, he insists that he's acting morally. It is his belief that many more lives will be lost to the virus if they wait any longer for a vaccine to be developed in the MO. In this case, it would be wise to provide the samples to Schäuble, who has been studying them for years. In exchange, they're giving away free medicine and other medical supplies in bulk. Vargas says he, too, is receiving a substantial salary. After hearing this, the senior is more satisfied, but he still worries that Schäuble would exploit the viral samples economically. Maybe they'll develop a vaccine and then release the virus into the wild, risking the lives of tens of millions of people in the process. The possibility is acknowledged by Vargas's response, and therefore it is decided to prevent the samples from reaching the Schäuble headquarters in Munich. Juan and Shauna have been sent on this particular mission. They leave the MO facility and sneak inside the building where Vargas had his covert meetings. After that, they make their way cautiously toward the emergency department. They have to battle and take out some guards along the route. Finally, Juan and Shauna enter the hospital area and locate the viral samples. Surprisingly, they also unearth Schäuble-manufactured vaccinations. Patients receive their immunization shots from Vargas the next day in the MO's medical room, and they begin to feel better in a few days. In addition to Irene's joy at finally being able to find gainful employment, Velasquez is ecstatic about his new lease on life. After 38 days of stringent procedures, the quarantine is removed since the threat has been largely eliminated. Even the agents who were stuck in the past are brought back to the present. A few days later, the group's senior agents are holding an emergency meeting. At first, Chief Fernando emphasizes the significance of the University of Spain to Spain. Then, Fernando explains that a production of a drama play called Don Juan Tenorio starring a number of then-future A-list actors was created in 1924. Salvatore Dal, the legendary artist, designed the cover art for the play. Still, a current tablet computer appears in the image as an unexpected detail. As far as I can tell, one of MO's agents is just fooling about and breaking the law. So, Chief Fernando plans to dispatch a squad to look into it. In the past, a trustworthy agent named Julian will be in charge, while in the present, Irene will be in charge of everything. Everyone dresses for the era of prohibition that night and visits MO's time machine. In an instant, they find themselves standing in front of the University of Madrid student residence in 1924. They walk in on the play's rehearsal in progress. The director is furious with the performers' performance and is harshly criticizing them. Julian and his group take their places at the far back of the auditorium to take in the entire spectacle. As he continues his tirade, the director suddenly collapses from exhaustion. A nurse comes running to help, but Julian, who is also a medic, asks her to move aside. The director is whisked into a room immediately, where Julian breaks the bad news that he has diabetes. This is because, in the present day, a diabetic stands out immediately from the general population. The nurse, however, is left in complete astonishment as she is learning about the practices of the 1920s. Exactly how Julian figured out what was wrong so quickly is beyond her comprehension. Over the next 3 days, the gang keeps digging, but they come up empty-handed. But they are able to connect well with the pupils. When it comes to the female nurse, Julian and she become fast friends. However, one day the agents uncover a very frightening revelation. This contemporary portrait of Julian and his wife was taken not long ago. Even worse, there's a MO stamped just behind the photo. If this is the case, then whomever was responsible for the tablet incident wants the gang to quit playing around. Later that same day, they travel back in time to current day to show Chief Fernando the photograph. The latter can't believe someone is using their time machine without their knowledge. Someone really close to them, in his opinion, is the one who committed the crime. But Irene disagrees. She claims it was an agent by the name of Lola who was let go for being unstable. Chief Fernando learned some information throughout the course of the conversation. Actually, a few days ago, a collection of Dali's early work sold for a staggering sum, cementing the artist's status as a legend in the art world. In all likelihood, this is impossible due to the fact that, according to recorded history, his early works were burned to the ground. However, according to Julian, this just strengthens their argument. Whoever is playing tricks on them is utilizing the time machine to go back in time, acquire Dali's paintings, and then sell them in the present. Julian goes right to work once the gang is back in the past. A fellow artist, he approaches Dali and offers his services. Then Julian asks Dali who buys all of his paintings, but Dali is reluctant to tell his rival. So Julian tries to think of an alternative. Later that night, as Dali is going to try to sell his paintings, he has his staff follow him. The buyer detects the spies and cancels his appearance, thus the scheme fails. It's Lola, the former agent, just as Irene had guessed. The next day at the play rehearsal, Julian receives another photo. Surprisingly, his initial reaction is anger and he storms out of the room. Upon closer inspection, it is seen that the photo is really of his late wife who perished in a vehicle crash. If Julian is still having dreams over the incident, whomever is messing with Mo must have a good understanding of him. Later that day, as the agents are plotting their next move, one of them receives a text from Lola. She suggests having a quiet chat in the church's sanctuary. The secret spy doesn't waste any time getting there, and he quickly locates Lola. At last, Lola admits that she is currently making a killing off of Dali's artwork. She says she left her tablet in his room by accident and that this is what started everything. She starts to leave after saying this, but just then Julian comes in and puts her under custody. Although Lola is furious at being duped, she has nothing to complain about given all the trouble she has brought upon herself. After some time has passed, the party is brought back to the present, where they are congratulated by Chief Fernando on their capture of the former agent gone rogue. Finally, they decide to talk about what to do with her, and Julian advises putting her in prison for the rest of her life. On the next day, everyone goes back to 1924 for the last time to say their goodbyes in style. They say they're transferring to a school in another nation when really they're just making things up. This is crucial in time travel since a mysterious disappearance will naturally raise suspicions and set off a chain reaction. Later on, Julian breaks the law by using the time machine. His wife's tragic death has plagued him for years, and now he wishes he could go back in time and change things to prevent it. After learning that she was hit by a car while out for a jog, Julian decides to drive between the two of them. It seems like the strategy is working, and she is not in danger. A second automobile, traveling at great speed, swerves to avoid the accident and crashes into Julian's wife. On the spot, both she and the person in the other vehicle were killed. It's proof that altering the past is impossible. The play concludes with Julian looking on as his dead wife is carried away by his younger self. View moduli insert chart trend.